And that's where my next question would be posed to Dr. Nidhi Vashisht, and she is an expert into training and development. So, Ms., would the conventional approaches of training and development in an organization be apt today, and or should the organizations adopt newer practices in people development, considering the multi-generational workforce that we deal with? What's your views on that?
Thank you. I think, like every time, the panel itself has helped so much for the entire topic to be understood. So thank you all for this wonderful exchange of learning and information. Okay. When it comes to the training and development function, I would like to thank Rajeshwari ma'am first that she gave a wonderful topic, a wonderful panel topic, which is generally not the run-of-the-mill kind of, which probably as a student, there are panel sessions happening in the conferences which we have heard when I was in 1998 sitting as an MHRM student, and I still hear when I am 2017 sitting with some experience. So giving a different topic where I could think about and dwell upon, it was really nice and exciting for me. When it comes to the T&D function, I was reflecting, I said, what should I say? But I think the most of the conceptual part has been covered up about how this whole strategy should come in place. I would like to share 2 or 3 very interesting experiences first and then move in to answer exactly what you were trying to ask. The first experience that I would say is, I think at the age of 26, I was trained to train the railway TTs who were 50 years of age. So I told my organization, I said, where are you putting me into? It's an Indian Railway, it's a public sector organization, and there will be all railway TTs in my training room. And I being 26, married for 2 years, I was feeling pretty young, and I was pretty young. So I was like, what to do next? I mean, these people are, they're going to be typical in the audience. See, today also, ma'am, if you can look at, there is a multi-generational audience that we have. As respected as Dr. Pistonji sitting in front of me, Gary, the cute person that we have met, and the young MHRM students that I would like to address specifically to, because they are the ones who are going to take up the HR in the next coming gens. So the experience was unique. My boss told me that the first thing that you need to do is to buy loads of saris, because you can't go in your general tunics with the railway TTs. And I was like, okay, so attire changes. But not only the attire, the whole mindset change. The TT there sitting with 35, 40 years, 50 years of experience gave me a very, very difficult situation. So the first week I was in real stress, and then the newspaper news clippings were that there was a TT who was found raping a woman, a passenger. So my husband took that clipping and put it on the table, and I said, thanks, what you have done is a encouragement or is it a discouragement? So I typically handled that situation quite well, and then somehow developed how to deliver a training program to an audience which is twice my age. And that gave a lot of learning about empathizing with your audience. I think that's one thing that I took as a major learning, that the person who is sitting there has his own experiences. If you be a little more appreciative and a more empathetic approach you can adopt towards that person, you can surely move in a better fashion. But the greener part came in now that after the whole project of training a railway TT ended, I was then given a Reliance Web World communication executives who were about 20 years of age. They said, your program is boring, you need to change the gears. And I was like, what? Now what? So now you need to do a lot of games, a lot of exercises, a lot of retreats, and the entire thing that I had learned had to be unlearned. So the training now has to be very energetic, it has to be very different, and it has to be done in a very different fashion. So I think these 2 things gave me a basic understanding of how to handle these 2 different set of audiences in your training programs also. Along with that, a very unique thing happened. I was working for a public sector bank, and this example, I'm not quoting the bank name because of confidential reasons. This bank had opened recruitment after 15 years, and they had loads of people joining in them. Now, the typical problem that was happening was that the branch head of that bank was actually being now introduced to a junior who was actually, like, supposing Mr. Sharma's son. So his own colleague's son has now joined the bank. So there was the 2 generations. So this boy who would join in will say, hello Sharma uncle, I've just joined the bank, and how do you feel about it? So the the bank was having a typical problem in terms that the management trainees were going up to the senior people expecting a lot of guidance to come in. And the seniors were saying that my son should have been here. Why is Mr. Sharma's son sitting and why should I help him? So there was a lot of generation thing which came up in the bank, and resulting which even students from IIM that the bank was hiring, they left the job, a public sector job, in about 6 months or so. And that is wherein the training thing entered, and I worked on a project of mentoring and appreciative inquiry for these people, and we'd worked on cross-mentoring, cross-generational mentoring. So how to handle the new generation better. So it was a unique thing that, no, again, handling different generation, how do you handle them, how do you appreciate, how do you empathize, and bring in those two different flavors for your bank. So again, this particular project did help us to understand that how mentoring can play a very important role, how a senior can be actually coached to become a mentor now, and he can take care of the new generation which has just joined in. So that's second example. And third example that I would like to bring in is that my jobs have given me a variety of exposures. Now I'm teaching students. So there are these young people, they sit in the class 9 o'clock and they keep telling that, we don't know, ma'am, what would happen if I enter at 9:05? You tell me, ma'am. You tell me, what is the difference? I will get to hear you less for 5 minutes, but why does the dean make my life so miserable? And I really don't have the answer. I said, I don't know, but I have to come here by 9 and you need to abide by it. So they were like discussing, ma'am, is time important or is intellect important? So they take you to all those rides of how to handle their queries. But I realized that this generation probably is faster, definitely. What ma'am would tell us in class, I would go and spend some time in library, bring in some 5 books, but they don't bother. They just open Google. If Google is able to answer, they end it there. That's the pain area, that if Google is not able to answer, they don't dig it further. So at times I try to give them which Google doesn't give them. So that becomes a challenge for the faculty also. How do you bring in something which Google is not answering? And I would like to talk to Google, maybe USP. The Google uncle has created a, so I'm sure sitting more closer to the Google headquarters, you can take our plea that no, please stop putting everything up there. So the students have then given a very, very different generational perspective of how do you handle them. Because here now I have to mix up both the things. I have to mix up knowledge while I'm training them, and I have to also mix up those games and fun activities. So if I've given a class at 9 o'clock, I'm very happy with it. But if I'm given a class at 3:30, I have to pick up a game. I can't start my class because they will look at me like a killer. No, she's come at 3:30, she will go at 4:30, and no, they're giving me that look already, that no, don't come into that class. So being into that particular perspective, I learned how to handle the audiences, and I would like to address to the people who are going to become the next HR fraternity that there are 2-3 things that you can take as my learning that I would like to share. Is one is the ability to empathize with others has helped me a lot. So how do you empathize? How do you connect and feel for the other person? The second is the ability to engage and collaborate. How do you engage and collaborate? Taking their skills, which are good and advantageous for the organization, bringing in a synergy from your side, and then creating a total entity where it could be a more productive thing for your own organizations. And I'm sure I don't have to spend much time here because I think our own kids are giving us a generational feel every day.
Oh, yes.
Right? So the lessons are something I think HR always, I believe, is a lesson that you can learn at your own home. I only yesterday had one of my friends sitting over a coffee was saying, I'm now talking good with my dad. And I was like, okay. So it's a big change. I'm talking good with my dad. So we all know that how kids and parents themselves suffer with this particular thing. When it comes to training, I would like to share that definitely the training game has changed altogether. It has the Google trainer is also there. Google is just not a professor. So I find so many trainers downloading an interpersonal skill PPT and they say we are interpersonal experts. And I'm like, okay, I respect your and empathize your ability to download a PPT and become a trainer. So there is a gap in terms of putting the training with competency focus. Every training program has to deliver a competency building. And if you're not doing that, then probably the training is not moving in that direction. So anything that you do with training also needs to be carefully thought out with the competency that you had sought out before beginning that program. And if that's there, I think whichever method you want to use works well for you. If digital works well for you, you do that. Because I remember one of the discussions, the faculty meetings that we had, the director said, there is absolutely no footfall in library. What to do? So he introduced an evening session called coffee, something like coffee with Karan. So there was a coffee with director, and nobody came in. So finally he introduced a Kindle corner in the library, and that worked a little better. So you could find those bean bags kept there. So ours is a very energetic institute, I would say, that we bring in new things very quickly. So there was a Kindle corner created, and then these were like happy. And then there is a student lounge, which is like almost close to a Taj lounge, and students are very happily sitting there. I was telling my director, at least we can have a faculty lounge. I have a cup of coffee here as well. But that's how you have to, if you have to keep the student excited and engaged, you will have to change even the infrastructures. Because we have this typical, another problem that in academics come in is that as soon as the batch begins, the friendliness goes so higher that you'll find a very close proximity between two of them sitting in a class. And how do you handle that? So there are these problems which faculty gets into. So there was those nameplates which were put on the tables. So Anil is going to sit here and Bishwas is going to sit here. So they were alphabetically taken. The next day when we came up, the students had broken the nameplates. They said, we don't buy this idea. But then it took us 1 year, we have again done it, and now they are sitting as per the alphabet. So these are things that we are every day witnessing, how a student, how a trainee can be engaged by the multiple ways and methods, be it digital technology to deliver a program, or be it Kindles.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nidhi. And what you're trying to again endorse the fact is the conventional methodologies and approaches need not necessarily, actually solve the expectations of the new age millennial, even at the employee workspace, not only in the academics. And that's where typically, you made a very important point that you need to be a little away from Google and possibly tell them what Google can't tell you. And that's where the expectations come, not only in terms of understanding the subject or in knowledge or knowing about the systems and processes. The training and development function in an organization should also assist in helping people make the right career choices, which the Google doesn't tell you. And that's where possibly, I'll move on to Dr. Quast again, who has been a patient listener for a while now, right? So Dr. Quast, you have been teaching career development. You have been an expert in that area. So what kind of careers, and I'm sure this would be an interesting question which would resonate with the audience here, what kind of careers do you see emerging to be the preferred choices among the workforces now?
Once again, I do have some data that I've gathered.
Thank you so much.
And, yeah. There we go. I was saying, once again, I do have some data to respond to the question, but before I get to my data, I have to follow up on comments from my colleague to my right about practices you were describing in the school and practices that we've seen at Google. A friend and former colleague of mine who actually described this situation to me and then said, you can quote me, he said, you can tell people this story, but don't name me when you do it. And he's an industrial psychologist, and he's currently employed at Google in a high-level people position. He said, we work very hard to create a psychologically codependent work environment. We have no respect for work-life balance. Why would we want to pay people for 8 hours a day when we can create a social environment that coerces 16 hours a day of work out of all of those people by putting sleeping mats under the stairwell so that they can stay the night, not even go home, providing free food and all the other collateral services. He said, we don't do that to be nice. We're walking a very careful tightrope to create a codependent, workaholic environment without people awakening to the fact that we're creating a codependent, workaholic environment. He said, that's a very difficult balance to do that without being seen doing it. So I assert to you, be careful what you ask for in that environment, because it can lead to, and this is my editorial judgment, abusive employee practices. Enough said on that. To get back to the question that you actually did ask me, careers you see people drawn towards. A number of people said jobs that cannot be replaced by machines. So they said mental health counseling, health care, health field, research in health care. Now, of course, current practice would suggest that even those fields, in the United States at least, are being somewhat automated and depersonalized. So we'll see if my students are right on that count. Here's one that I just loved from a student at a university in, if you heard my presentation yesterday, in what we refer to as flyover land. Tourists come to the United States, they visit the East Coast, they visit the West Coast, and everything in between is flyover land. I live in the northern edge of flyover land. They said, I want to go and work on a development project in a developing country. I don't want to work for a large conglomerate or corporation.
Oh.
How about that, huh? Life coaching, renewable energy, innovation in sustainability. Then there's several clusters. Careers where I have the opportunity to interact with people, not sit behind a desk. Hands-on, collaborative, innovative, working with people. Another cluster was around positions that are fluid and flexible, demand that we think on the spot and have mental agility to move with changing demands, not a job that's set in concrete. One that relates to a theme that we address at our university, and that is context design and design thinking. And so a number of them commented on a job that involves design thinking and creating new contexts for innovations coming along. A lot of students commented on being digitally connected and working in a career where I get to use my digital skills. And then a whole cluster on technology, programming, automation, artificial intelligence, data management, data mining, big data, computer-based careers. So there was another whole cluster in that area as well.
Wow. I love that part when your students came up and acknowledged the fact that, you know, a job which cannot be replaced by machines. Well, that's a fact. A lot of our life is now being so-called governed by technology and machines, and probably there's a hope that there is some element where the machines can't take over. And we all know as humans that, you know, they are all emotions. And when you talk about emotions, to deal with emotions of a human, the machines probably can't today, though the research is getting on done in that area. But then there's a role of individuals other than HR to engage the people, and that's the immediate manager and supervisor. So that's why I turned to Dr. Werner, because, you know, one of his researchers has covered a subject on actions that managers can engage in to build the trust between the employees and management. That's a research that John had done. So, you know, my question to you, John, is what skills and capabilities do you suppose the managers who would have to build up for managing multi-generation subordinates?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do think that this is an issue that crosses all cultures and generations, the issue of trust in the workplace. And many people talk about how low trust is, and yet there's other examples where we see quite the opposite. I'm just going to start with a brief review. This is Academy Management Review article. Ellen Whitener was the first author, 1998. And this is going to sound perhaps almost mundane, but we scoured the literature, and there were 5 points that seemed to come up. Behaving consistently, behaving with integrity, sharing and delegation of control, communication, and demonstration of concern.
Okay.
Those 5 basic points were what came from the literature. Now, we build an exchange framework, and there's much more to the article than that. But predictability in the manager, telling the truth, keeping promises, sharing, delegating control, communication. We've heard many of these things already in our conference. So this is, I think, I feel very confident that this is the issue. Now, the point that we were trying to make is that so often we focused on trust just from the employee standpoint. But we tried to flip it around and say, what can managers do to demonstrate that they are trustworthy? That's a different question. And so this is a little odd because we've been picking on Google a little bit here, but Google did a study of their own managers. And Google is all about data, right? So you can't get more analytic than this. And listen to their list of 8 habits of highly effective Google managers. These are just managers in Google. Be a good coach. Empower your team and don't micromanage. Express interest in employee success and well-being. Be productive and results-oriented. Be a good communicator and listen to your team. Help your employees with career development. Have a clear vision and strategy for the team. And have key technical skills so you can help advise the team. There's your foreman idea in the last one. Interestingly, that was the least. The one that was in order of importance to success by Google's own analytics. Coaching, empowering, interest in the employee. And those match up quite nicely. I won't go through, but you can see from my original list. And I think that's why it's so important here. So the point, it's the same point I wanted to make before, is it is an issue of do managers have what it takes? And that's why I think training is so critical, because we throw so many people into management, even from, well, with a good education, but without the proper training to, in fact, know how to lead people. And it's so much more than, I'm the boss, I do what I tell you. I have an anecdote when I was working with a professor who developed assessment centers, and we wanted to do it for a new paper mill in northern Michigan. And so I grew up in Michigan where there's lots of unions and autos. I know some of the stories in the US that you talked about with the unions there. So I'm familiar. So we're trying to design this new approach to hiring people for a paper mill in northern Michigan, which is very rural, quite poor. So we went into the inner city to test it out. And when we would put people into the role of manager, probably 3 times out of 4, they went into the autocratic mold. And I finally asked them, is that what you want? No. Well, why did you do that? Well, that's just the way managers are. Well, does that have to be? But that was their experience. And so I think many times the issue, especially for those of us that have had the blessing of more education, of so much that's been given to us, is that what can we do? I mean, it's a basic list, but can I be trusted that I will behave consistently? That was top on their list when they asked the employees to respond to this. Number 1, they wanted even-keeled bosses. This is now from the Google employees. They wanted managers who helped them solve problems, so worked with them, and that they were interested in the employees' lives and careers. That's from the employee standpoint. So we can do that, and we can train how to do that. And just one final anecdote. I was very threatened the first time someone in the back of the class said, Professor Werner, according to Google, and it was different than what I had just said. It's like, freaked me out. I don't want to hear this. But now I've come to learn I can embrace that. As an instructor, oh, that's interesting. Well, no, let's unpack that. Where was that source? Can we trust this source? And teaching them how to use and not use Google as Professor Google, but again, trying to build in the idea that how I treat people matters as an instructor, as a trainer, and that's the piece that I think has been so missing, and especially with all the anecdotes that we hear, and realize, you do realize that there's a lot of research that suggests that there are not major differences. There's differences with maturation. That was the first point that Professor Quast made. But it's not so much that this generation is so much different than others in a lot of ways. But there's things that happen. When I was young, I could care less about retirement. Now I care. I didn't care less about, the 401k, those types of things. Well, that's maturation.
That's right.
That's not a specific generation, whatever you want to call it. And
that's right.
let's try to get away from Generation Me. I don't know if I like iGen. Let's find something else to call it, because it's not just that it's about me. I think
true.
that's a misnomer.
That's true. That's true.
But it is, how do we engage at
Correct.
every level? And that's where
Correct.
the initiative,
Correct.
the creativity, in it, it's not one size fits all.
Oh,
If there's
yes.
anything we know, it's not that one approach is going to work
That's right,
for all
that's right.
employees, regardless of age.
You have brilliantly put, John. Yes, one size doesn't fit all. And that's why probably there are many areas where even the best of manager, sometimes with the best of qualities of engaging people, might still fail sometimes, at times when the organization support system doesn't encourage the managers to do so. And one such thing, probably, in Indian context, we see a lot of attrition happening during the appraisal cycles. Perhaps the manager is wanting to retain the person, but then because of, and that's where, once again, I bounce off a question for a brief reply, because we need to capture the audience responses as well later on to Dilip, that compensation is one area where HR finds it challenging to have an egalitarian and still a differentiated approach, right? So what will be the preparedness that HR of tomorrow should have to meet the varied expectations in the area of compensation by the emerging millennial workforce, where probably the manager will have a little role to play? Yeah.
It's a good question, man. So effectively the qualities that we need to have, HR for tomorrow as well is, one is acceptance and appreciation. So accepting that, yes, others may have different needs, not come with your own misnomers or your own thought process, etc. And then second is ability to really find out what on earth the need is. That definition, the problem definition, is where the actual problem comes in. That we in HR many times don't understand what on earth the main problem is, and jump onto solutions, thoughts, but not get to the nail of what the actual need or ask is. So delving deeper would be the key. And in terms of egalitarian yet customized, a quick two examples for that is, one, for us to be able to do that is, again, we see that from a compensation perspective. I'm going a bit granular, but very quickly, from a compensation perspective, we look at it from an incentive design perspective. So global incentive programs, Adani is a global organization. They're present in multiple countries. So they need to have a global framework, right? So simply put, framework where we define performance parameters, right? One is revenue, one is profitability. I'm just saying, for example. And that can be whatever it is in terms of measurable. Revenue can be, percentage growth or percentage plan, or profitability, whatever it is, net operating income. And then you nail it down to the country level, to the business level, to the unit level, because the bottom line is the millennial, as we are calling it, need to have that line of sight. If they don't have it, they are not engaged. So again, if we have those parameters defined, but we then customize it to the respective lines of businesses that we are working on, that gives the flexibility, which is the other piece. So coming on to what Manoj said, mindset. Putting that mindset back into picture, saying have the global parameters, but customize it.
That's right. So you're actually trying to echo John's thoughts and say that, at a manager level or a supervisory level, you say one size doesn't fit all. That even applies to the back end part of HR, wherein you're devising practices and the strategies around compensation. That also you need to take into account one size doesn't fit all. So you need to equally make the manager's capability build up by encouraging them with the kind of practices that HR tries to put in. Let's talk about employee engagement, and I move to Mr. Sharma for a while. That talent retention has actually become a big challenge today, right? So might be quickly, in case if you can help us to understand what different practices of employee engagement are relevant and meaningful today when you have a multi-generational workforce around, because in the names of employee engagement, you have so many of cultural programs going on. So many fun-loving activities which move on. But when you talk about employee engagement, typically looking at a multi-generational workforce, what are the practices that the HR should emerge with?
Thanks, Anil. I think fundamentally, it's very important for any organization. It is very underlining principle. What does multi-generation means to your organization? What does it mean to you, to your organization? If you are not clear, you can't help it. And you must confess that if you have multi-generations working with you, what is those cuts available with you? Mm-hmm. Go to them. Go to them and understand what exactly they want. Make those disruptions happen in your organization. Change those old rules, what you had framed 10 years before. Those are no more valid for your organization. They are not looking very fancy things in your organization. Very small example, when I bagged Great Place to Work for my company, very small example. A lady was wishing that she wants to wear sports shoes when she comes to the work. Very simple. Now she's not allowed because this is a casual dress, but she's comfortable. Now if you allow that piece, she's engaged. It's a rational to emotional. You are taking people from rational approach of 8 to 5 to emotional. Meenakshi was telling me in the morning how I can make a statement in the print media to make people available in the organization 24/7. It's not right, but if there is a psychological contract even after 5 o'clock that runs in the mind of people, they are available mentally. They are available. They may not be physically there in the organization. So what does it mean to you, to your organization? That is more important. If millennials want them to be recognized immediately, they don't want to wait for the annual awards to happen. Give them spot recognition awards.
Very well said, very well said. Yeah.
Give them chocolates immediately. Give them pat openly. We try to celebrate appreciation weeks. So we encourage people to go together and go and appreciate departments. Go and appreciate individuals. Go and tie the bands on the hands of people you really love in the organization. They are supporting you. No, it's creating an engagement, psychological contract in the organization. You need not to wait for something, a very, excuse me for using the consultancy word in the morning we shared, wait for the consultant to come and research in your organization where is the pain area. Just listen to the very softer voices of your own people, that's it.
Correct.
We made that attempt in an organization and went through and we made all those disruptions. I must tell you, 100% policies are changed.
Wow.
And people are feeling very, very engaged in the organization. We have created our own model. It's beyond culture and everything. We want them to, engaged employees are more highly productive. They give you more than what is required than in your KRAs, KPIs.
That's true.
That's it. Very simple.
That's true. Fantastic. I mean, moving from rational approach to emotional approach, it's a kind of a balanced art that an HR needs to play. Where is it that you need to be rational and where is it that you need to be more engaging, and that happens through emotions. Let's talk about digitization, because which has been much talked about subject in the past couple of years. And this would be the last question for the panelists for today morning, and then we break it out to the audience for their questions. My question will be to Dr. Nidhi Vashisht, that digitization has been playing a major role for organizations to reach out learning to the large workforce. We have MOOCs, we have open learning systems, we have distant learning portals. Now considering that organization reaches out to multi-generation workforce because they would like to have learning at their convenience, and that's where these technologies help us to adapt to these requirements. What do you think, Nidhi? Would online learning platforms be easy for governing learning across the organization? Because we're talking about a rational and emotional both.
Right.
Yeah.
I think most of the times, till about the middle and the new belt of the organization, the digital is working quite well. The student typically is getting into webinars, they are into MOOC already. They are into the WhatsApp mode of coaching, mentoring model also. I last evening, when I went back from the gala dinner, I was with my mentee.
It's a WhatsApp forward mode of coaching.
WhatsApp is also, has come in as a mode of coaching and mentoring 24/7. And so that's how digitization has already come in, and most of us have swept into, so there's no worries about it. But I showed the training part, which I particularly cater to, when it comes to strategic leadership workshops. Or training, as we all know, also serves, all of us in conference are happy that 3 days we can say we didn't pick up your call because we were busy in the conference. So the training also serves the purpose of giving you a retreat. So the emotional disconnect of the physical connect with the organization, which is disconnected because of a training, still you will find a lot of senior leadership programs being done offline, and they serve their purpose very, very well. And typically in India, the public sector organizations, I would say, are right now not digitized to, I don't think more than 30% of them have experimented using the digital platforms. So there's a long way to go as far as the public sector, the government sector is concerned.
Correct.
But yeah, in the private sector, the digitization is very much there, and
Correct.
we are connected through the globe.
Correct.
And the online platforms are picking up very well.
Correct.
I
Correct.
have a small observation here, Nidhi. Like
Yeah.
For last 3 years. Last 3 years, I have been, following the digitization in the HR fraternity in public sector, and I'm amazed by the number of
Oh, yes.
growth. So
Yes.
don't say that
Yes.
they are not.
Ah.
I think e-learning modes in all the banks. I think people sitting here like Shailesh is there. I think anybody from bank like Naipal Singh ji are there from the Indian bank sector,
Correct.
which is under the government. And I think for last 4-5 years,
Yeah.
they are onto the e-learning mode and digitization. So
Correct.
we cannot have a thought a narrow picture on that. Rather, they have taken it into a very, very wide mode through their HRD centers, which is called HRDC.
Correct.
Yeah. Sorry,
Correct.
I thought. Let me just correct you. Yeah.
So that way, the digitization perspective is very much there, and as ma'am has shared that it is going even further, of course, the expectation which is coming up. So we can't be swept off with it. Yeah.
Yeah, you wanted to add something, Louis?
I had I have a quick comment on MOOCs. I had the good fortune to run Leadership Institute at an elite private university on the west coast of the United States that I won't name, that spawns lots of technology development. And the largest host of MOOCs was in Silicon Valley, was spawned from that university. So I was talking to the director of that initiative at the university, and I said, I don't understand the business model. Why would you bother to offer MOOCs? And he said, oh, the answer is very simple. We use it as a recruiting device. We've developed the most sophisticated web crawlers that our technology has enabled us. We call them trained spiders. They track every keystroke of every person that's subscribed to every course and every MOOC on the whole platform. And we're sifting for trend leaders. We track those people down 1 basis point, 1/100th of 1/100th of the subscription. We hand that digital record over to human analysts, and we go another 1,000th of that, and then we offer those people full ride scholarships to come to our university. He said, as far as the MOOC is concerned, I don't care. We're not offering any credential for the learning. They could be playing cartoons on the MOOC as far as we are concerned. And the education, if it occurs, is purely incidental. He said not only that, but Coursera, the host, has the ability to send their spiders to every university that offers MOOCs on their platform. So be careful what you subscribe to. Here I am again being the cynic and the skeptic about these technology platforms, but be careful what you ask for, because they're being used for reasons that are not obvious to the casual participant.
Correct. Thank you, Louis, for adding that. And yes, a terrible shift has already happened in digitization, and Dr. Rajeshwari put it very nicely that even the public sectors, you find a lot of digitization happening, public sector banks as well as other organizations. So, and that is something, that the HR should be governed by as it moves on. So while you cannot neglect the emotional approach, of a little bit of rational and digitization has to be put in place, and that's where the job of the consultants also becomes safe. Right. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of this panel discussion. I thank the panelists here. Now, before I declare the session open for questions, I wish to conclude saying about the inferences which I could draw is that the competence of HR leaders to drive the organizational excellence going forward may depend a lot on their ability to deal with the multi-generational workforce. And in the quest for achieving this organizational excellence, it might be essential to continuously thrive for best practices that are adaptive in nature. And with the pace of change that we are envisaging and also that we are living through, it would be very important to develop the capabilities in us in HR to effectively partner with the multi-generational workforce, because they are the future. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I now declare the session open for questions to the panelists. We might take up here. Yeah, please. Can somebody help us with the mic, please, to Thip? Yeah. we have. Oh yeah, you need one for the panelists. That's all. Yes.
Yeah, hi. Hi, I'm Cassiopeia Chaudhary, and I work for IBM. And I think this was a very, very interesting topic that we had, as well as, okay, I need to hold it really close.
That's okay, you're audible.
Okay, I'm audible enough, in fact. And the topic was extremely interesting, and there were lots of perspectives that were shared that I think, most of us in our own organizations could relate to, especially a lot of, the topics related to the millennials, Gen Z, millennials, whatever you end up calling. Because I think there is an increasing thrust in all organizations related specifically to millennials. And that's where my question is. The entire discussion, the thrust of the discussion, and most of the areas that we tried to sort of address included a major focus on the millennials, on the new generation, the kids that we are getting from campuses into the organization. Some of us call them entry-level trainees, ELTPs, etc. I have been seeing, I have about 13 years of experience in the HR profession, a lot less than most of you in this esteemed panel and in the room. But I have seen an increasing trend across all industries towards ageism. And while it's wonderful to focus on the millennials, on the younger generations that we have, and I've been going through a lot of notices on LinkedIn and a lot of social media forums as well, and talking to some of my esteemed colleagues as well, where the other end of the workforce, the baby boomers or workforces maybe somewhere in the region, in the ages of about 50 years and above, somewhere down the line, I don't think we're taking enough effort to be inclusive about that particular workforce. Our concentration in organizations, irrespective of industry, has been towards the millennials. What can we do to engage them? I mean, we're so concerned about them that somewhere down the line, we're forgetting that the expertise that comes with age and maturity, technology is wonderful, but that comes with age and maturity. We're somewhere relegating that. So I really have a question, and this is open to the entire panel. Anybody can pick it up. What are we doing about ageism and the mindset around that? Because I'm very concerned.
Before anyone takes on answer, those who are asking questions, please be very crisp, and because I want to give maximum opportunity to everyone, and just be very, very crisp and short in your questions.
I think the question, Cassiopeia, you have asked, it's very relevant in the today's workforce, multi-generation workforce. If you can blend this, I'll give you an example. If millennials are considered to be they are born in gadgets and they love using gadgets, can we give them an environment where the information that we can share with them, it's not an information hoarding. If I put it in my words, there are a couple of people in my system, we say they are the road blockers. They hoard the information, they don't pass it on to the millennials, and how we can expect them to give the results. Now, if that information can be there on the platform where the people can be given those rights, and they can play wonderful roles in all that artificial intelligence, what we talk right now, and they can draw a lot of inference for decision making for the Gen X people. I'll give you another example. If we consider that millennials are good in giving a lot of innovative ideas, we can attach Gen X people on cost and the risk side of it. So there is sustenance in the organization, there is a sustainable officer in the organization. It's very important element of that is how the risk is, as a part of that is a major element of that. So if the millennials can also learn from the experience of Gen X by being, mentored on the cost and the risk side of it, it's an excellent blend in the organization that can work wonders. I'll tell you, Adani has taken the initiative of grooming 200 future leaders. Now imagine the age group of that. So all the functional heads like me, they are part of that, but we have picked up all high potentials also in that. So in my team, there is a 7-people team who had done a wonderful project for the future, almost, you can say, it's a 150 million project that is assigned to this 7 people. Now, out of 7, there are 3 who are millennials, and 2 are taking care of the cost and risk side of it. And it's a wonderful proposition. All are sitting together day and night and working that how we can see that there is a harmless in the culture of the organization, so people are safe, and we can still save on the cost, and we can benchmark worldwide on that. What best practices we can bring so that the cost is also taken care, the risk is also taken care, and time is also taken care.
Great.
So these are the live projects we have addressed.
Great.
So you can think of many such ideas where you can have the blend of together so that things can move in that direction what we want.
Correct. So in one area you don't neglect the kind of newer ideas which comes from the millennials, and second is fine, don't discourage the kind of experience and wisdom which comes from those age-old practices, Gen X. Yes. You wanted to
A
add
quick
something?
demographic comment.
Yeah.
In the United States, not India, in the United States today, 2017, millennials, by the way, millennials are Gen Y, not Gen Z. Millennials are already the largest cohort in the workforce today. And so from simply a demographic standpoint, that's the biggest population that HR people are dealing with day in and day out. Boomers are not retiring at the rate that was predicted by demographers, for the sole reason, except for health reasons, for the sole reason that, again, in the United States, they can't afford to. They don't have the financial resources, and healthcare in the United States is bloody expensive, pardon my expression. So ageism is an issue in the employment experience in the United States in 2017. Can't comment on India at this point.
Sure. Thank you. The next question, please. Yeah.
I am from Bangalore. I'm an academician. I am facing different situation from my students. Since in Bangalore we are having more number of IT companies. After the introduction of the social media, now almost all the students, past students who are working in IT companies, they are using the social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, everything, and they wish to make them their own branding. That is the concept of employee branding. So in this life of students itself, they wish to create and branding themselves. And after entering into the IT companies, now the recent trend is what they are telling. They are simply banning such type of employee branding activities.
Wow.
So what is your view about that employee branding through these social activities? Media.
Yeah. I would like to pick that up. Dilip would like to pick that up? Yes. It's on.
So, so first of all, accept that that is actually happening, and this is what we are seeing as well in a lot of our clients, right? So that's happening. Two, when situations of such has arisen, in terms of practice, the reasoning is why. It's just, from an organization perspective, again, it's not really a direct answer, but the point is, from an organization perspective, it may be a bit more harmful, in the short run and the middle run. I don't know what's wrong, but this is what we typically hear, not just the HR professionals saying it, it's the line leaders saying it, where you are creating your own individual personality type, if you may want to call it that way, an individual brand, whatever, then that impacts how I position with the rest of the team. How do I position myself or my organization or the team that I work for, whatever, compared to you as an individual? And hence that individualistic approach, take away, you are part of the team. Typically in the IT or high-tech sector, if you want to call it that way, I'm not saying IT, but the high-tech sector, it's all inclusive, it's all projects, it's not just one guy. And hence that disruptive nature, if you want to call it that way, which is considered harmful for its own merits, is trying to kind of being taken away. While we do it as students is because obviously we want to be out there, get a job. Simple as that, right? But after you're in, you have to go ahead and, prepare for adulthood, as I said, or prepare for the, workforce that you are going to enter and mature over a period of time. That's kind of just a quick thought on that.
Sure. Any more questions?
But even as simple as something as LinkedIn, I mean, we're encouraging everyone, including employees, to use that. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there also one question. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Good morning. My question is within this diversity, especially when we are talking about the new workforce, there is another subset, the first generation employees. So people from rural areas and all, nobody at their home has ever worked. So, or maybe increasing number of women in the workforce. So how we are addressing this diversity among the generation I?
Yeah, I think so. Manoj would be able to pick that up for the diversity. You see a lot of diversity in your role today in Dani.
Yeah,
First generation workers.
he's talking about the first generation workers. Especially the white collar side. I'm not saying about the blue collar. Being part of a few government organizations, I happened to visit them very recently, and I found that there was no girl student there. So I asked them that why the girls are not there participating in the renewable energy sector. So they said girls are not showing interest. I said, how did you say that in such an era when women are all over the world, in all over the facets of life, and what is that effort that has gone into that to encourage women to participate in this? Same way that it applies in the organization, that how much we care. In the first session, MTRH, I think that was a wonderful experience we had on that day, 7th morning. So how do we care women in the organization? So do we care about that, what is that they need, in the organization to have that acceptance as a woman in the organization or as an equal partner in the organization? So that's a very important element. The women, when they start participating at the highest level, automatic that flows down. The minute you say that, okay, there should be a diversity and we should have this many number of people working women in the organization, probably then the numbers are only as a compliance tick mark. It doesn't happen the way it is required. But when you have a women in the board, then definitely it automatically flows down that what is that diversity mean to us and where the women needs to participate. Women, HR is a feminine part of the organization. So what is that phase the organization carry when we say the HR? So what is that care employees need? If women are there, what is that they partner in the organization, even in strategic decisions in the interest of organization? I think this is a very high level thinking, and if you really want that diversity to happen in the organization, start looking at the women at the functional head level. Start looking at the board level first. Unless you see there, the things doesn't happen, the diversity you are looking at from bottom to top.
Great, thank you. We had a question there somewhere? Yeah, yes sir.
I have two comments. I'm Professor Bidhan Chandra from the State University of New York, and I'm also wearing another hat, which is a management consultant in the US, trying to help American companies understand the Indian youth and working with them successfully.
You have a very complex problem, sir.
So the comment I want to make is that Indian HR needs to focus not only on how to engage youth here, the millennials here, but also they need to work with the HR in the US and other countries to make them understand, teach them about what they don't know about how to work with millennials here. There's a lot of issues here. Something as simple as, I heard comments when I do corporate training programs in the US, Indian youth waste too much time on cricket. And it's my job then to tell them that it's not a waste of time, it's a means to bring them together, they socialize, they work together, this is part of team building. And there's so many things, I can take probably an hour to say that, but we don't have time. So we have to teach not only the Indian HR about how to work, but also HR of other companies who are working here either in their own captive offices or in an outsourced position. The second thing I want to comment about is Coursera, and with all due respect to you, sir, I disagree with your opinion about Coursera. Coursera has been a revolution in the way of online teaching, and there are so many courses there from top-level universities throughout the world. You can take it for free. They only charge you a fee if you are wanting a certificate. And my own college, Empire State College of State University of New York, they have developed two Coursera's for people all over the world, particularly the youth. And one course that I would highly recommend, and there is no fee for it, so I'm not doing marketing for benefit to the university, but this course is Career Brand Management and self-marketing. It's available on Coursera for free. It's a 4-week course with about 80 video clips. And I'm very proud to say that as we speak, the course is being taken by 50,000 employees and students all over the world for free.
Very good. Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you for the feedback. So we are already running short of time. In case if, sorry? Last one, I think so we'll take up this last and then you can connect with the panel during the break.
We heard about a term, mid-career crisis, right? So I would like to understand the experience, how the HR is addressing in an organizational context, be it a kind of a corporate or an academic, right? How we are addressing to this mid-career crisis issues which a couple of employees may be facing in the organization.
Can I answer?
Yeah, please, please.
I think the best solution we could find was the Ramcharan's model, the role-based organization. See, there is no dearth of asking the designations. If you ask, it's a laundry list. I have seen in the organization there are the hierarchies of 20 designations starting from engineer to the president.
Correct.
So one way of looking at is that millennials, they want designation as a social status in the organization. But I think if we go by the multi-generation, these were the Gen X, they were more concerned about their designations as a social status rather than millennials. Millennials, if you give them as a role-based organization, give them that position and role and start giving them horizontal aspect of it, probably there is quite that spur that you get in the organization as a motivation. So that automatically becomes intrinsic rather than extrinsic, what
Correct.
you want to give as a motivation to them just for the sake of giving them a designation. So I am personally working on this special area for the entire Adani group as a challenge, and I'm going to roll out this by December. So this is what a very disruptive change we are bringing in our organization.
Well, I take the opportunity to thank everyone. I'm sorry barging in so quickly because we are already 10 minutes late for tea, and we had organized one group photograph of all sitting here. So down before tea. So he has to take the charge of that. तो आप एक quickly पैनल का फोटो लेकर के और आप भागिए, हम आते हैं आपके पीछे पीछे.
Thank you so much, all of you.
I have a small gift, wisdom of Gandhi for everyone. So please, thank you so much for being there. दीदी तो मेरे अपने में देते So we would want with your autograph. Yeah. Your best wishes. Yeah, with my best wishes. All best. दिखना है आप. कर दूंगी आप.